Shabbat Shalom. Welcome. Well, it's certainly been a difficult day in the life of our community. I think that we're often in something of a fool's paradise when it comes to issues of race and tolerance in America. We read of things or we see them on TV and we immediately define them as things that happen somewhere else because I read about it in the newspaper or I saw it on TV. Undoubtedly, many people are doing the same thing tonight, clucking their tongues and wondering, what's wrong with those people on the Cape? I wish I were more surprised. Those who have lived lives as Jews in the diaspora, though, are never surprised. We're saddened. We're saddened when people do terrible things. We're disgusted when people act out of hate instead of out of love. But we're also resigned to certain realities. More importantly, we are determined. Could you imagine what Jewish history would look like if we had caved in when trouble came? We would have disappeared 2,500 years ago. The Babylonians would have swept in, and that would have been the end. We would have just been some other obscure ancient people noted in history texts. Giving in was never an option. Many of us have given way to the temptation to pathologize people who do things such as were done early this morning. Anybody who did something like that must be very ignorant. Maybe they were using drugs or alcohol, or we'll minimize. Whoever did it, it's a kid, an idiot, some ignorant buffoon. Well, surely all of those things are probably true. But we delude ourselves if we think ignorant kids can't still do terrible things. And it doesn't make them any less terrible. I thank God there was no lasting damage done to our physical structure or to our community. The damage that comes when hate rears its head is more to our psyche, and for that I worry. The lasting effects can be corrosive because it leads us down a terrible path. A path of distrust. When you previously feel safe, and then you don't. You look everywhere, seeing those who might harm you. It leads us to want to turn inward. We know the impulse to build a barricade impenetrable to all who would cause harm. Our gated community isn't enough anymore. I want a moat and an alligator. There's always another step we can take. But it's not an impulse that we can afford to indulge, because it's a path ultimately of weakness and fear. I'm always amazed how things go with a sense of timing in any given week. How was it that I just read this or just saw that? And then it comes up and it's perfect for the moment. Just on Wednesday evening, I had my confirmation class. Jack and Zach, you were there with me. And I started it with a quote from Rabbi Emil Fackenheim, which they'll stand up and recite now, right? No, all right, you're off the hook. Emil Fackenheim was a German Jew who got out of Germany in the late 1930s. He went on to earn his PhD. He was a professor at the University of Toronto for many years and also at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. What he is best known for is probably his postulation of the 614th commandment. Traditionally in Judaism, the numbering of the commandments of the Torah, 613, no more, no less. Well, he said there was a 614th. Thou shalt not hand Hitler posthumous victories. To despair of the God of Israel is to continue Hitler's work for him. Strong words, with strong implications, which I will return to. Fackenheim's best-known book was called God's Presence in History. Here he was, a brand plucked from the fire. He had left Germany. And he looked at the arc of Jewish history from ancient times to the present, and he came to a realization that if we stepped back, if we looked at the arc of that history in its entirety, then we had to be only assured of God's abiding presence with us. How could that be? Think about it. given all the attempts upon us by other people. How else could we have survived? That was his evidence. I bring you to the Passover Seder for one moment. There's a place where we raise our second cup of wine and place it back down untasted. We hear the following words. V'hi she'ameda lavotenu v'lanu shelo echad bilvad amad aleinu l'chalotenu ele shebechol dor omdim aleinu l'chalotenu v'hakadosh baruch hu matzilenu mi'adam. There is one who stood for our ancestors and for us. For there was not only one person or only one instance where those stood against us to strike us, but rather, in every generation, there have been those who stood up to strike us down. But the Holy One of Blessing redeems us from their hand again and again. The 614th commandment, do not despair. To realize fully, consciously, and in our hearts that we have always survived by the grace of God. I won't minimize what happened today. As long as people in this country feel unsafe because of their skin color, their sexual orientation, or their religion, I don't dare minimize it. As long as houses of worship are attacked, whether by a vandal here on Cape or by arsonists in Springfield, I won't minimize it. There are other things I won't do either, and neither should you. I won't despair. Look around at all these good people who feel the Spirit of God and the love of humanity and are working to make this world a better place. Look at all these people of conscience who are outraged at injustice and are our natural allies and friends in the fight against injustice and hate. I won't overreact. I won't draw inward. This is not my first personal experience of anti-Semitism, and I'm sure it won't be my last, and I doubt it was yours either. I learned early at the age of 12 when my own synagogue burned. Lessons learned early that have stayed with me. You don't give up. The lesson is to keep going forward. There are people in this world who will attack us for what we stand for. The best thing we can do in response is to keep doing what we do, to keep reaching out to those in need, to keep standing for justice, for tolerance, for respect, to keep our traditions, to keep our people, to keep insisting that the world we live in isn't finished being created yet, and that God is counting on us to do the work. Shabbat Shalom.